TowerCast podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmakers of El Paso and the world. Keeping it real like a roll of film, always looking to develop with you, the listeners, the filmmakers, and the stories you tell. Welcome to today's very special theatrical podcast episode of the TowerCast podcast. Today we have the usual suspects, of course. We have Carlos de la Torre, our Walt Disney, as I always pronounce him to be.
Far too kind with those words, Juan. We gotta, I'm no Disney, but thank you. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to the TowerCast.
Thank you so much. And then, of course, we have John Eric Castro, the actor.
What's going on, film people?
Our beloved thespian, who I'm sure has a ton of questions actually ready to go for you guys. So be ready on that. And of course, Austin Young, keeping us young. Working behind the scenes, of course, as he always is. I'm not sure if he'll be able to respond, but
how's it going?
Michael Delao is also here as well. Our
Hello.
He's been keeping the ship afloat, and he's sort of the organizer. And of course, you may know him already, but just to introduce anybody, so the new listeners out there, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to Google Podcasts to YouTube to Pirate Bay. Who knows where you're listening to? I want to thank you for tuning in.
Like this?
I know it does.
Castro's got a hookup on.
Hey man, people could be watching.
Make sure you got that NordVPN. Anyways, today we have none other than Los Actores group from El Paso. Today, I want to emphasize something. I feel like it's going to be a very informative piece. This piece of audio, this piece of video, whatever you want to call it. I want to make sure that we let the ensemble of today let us know what this play was about, and I want them to break free and just tell us what you guys congregated together to create and why you do it, and what kept you waking up early and during a pandemic of all things to still deliver a performance. So I would love to, because we always at the beginning do like a little roll call, right, of who's here. I would love to do a roll call for everybody in the room who isn't in the TowerCast podcast. If it was call time right now, how would you introduce your role in the play?
I guess we could start with the director.
We get off with Denise.
Yeah. So Joanne Lopez Padilla was our main director, and she. It was a privilege to assist her with this production. First of all, it was so, oh my gosh, it was so wonderful to have something to focus on that wasn't the pandemic and wasn't like just anything related to that, and was just about telling the stories of these 8 very different, very interesting women. And that connection that I had never made this connection before, that the way we mistreat and abuse our Mother Earth, our planet, is the same way that we abuse the women in our lives. There's a monologue about the murders of the women in Juarez. My monologue was the sillier one. It was about basically littering. But these stories were told in a really interesting way that felt very real and very relevant to what was going on today.
And for anybody listening out there, I'm sorry to interrupt, Denise, but for anybody listening out there, we are talking about Los Actores' new production, virtual production, When Nature Calls, that they just recently, a few weeks back, went live on, and it was a terrific effort and a terrific venture to do. I know a lot of people tuned in. I was there, and a lot of artists and collaborators were able to also donate and fund some of the efforts that the Los Actores group are doing, which was the ultimate key. So just for those of you that don't know what Denise is kind of alluding to, we're alluding to When Nature Calls, which is their new production, which I'll let her continue on about what that's all about. But
and this was a project that Joanne had actually wanted to put on for years. I think it was something like 7 years that she's been trying to put this on. And it actually worked really well as a virtual production because it is a monologue show. So you could focus on one story at a time. And we wanted to bring this piece to everybody. So we did offer it free of charge. We raised an amazing amount through our GoFundMe page.
Awesome.
We were hoping we would be so happy if we just paid for the rights to do the production.
Right.
But we raised almost $1,800, and it was
Wow.
so amazing to see the support and the interest in our project.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I should also paint the picture of like why a play with such subtext is important to El Paso. And stop me if I ever start mansplaining, please.
Oh, I will.
Thank you. The only thing I know, and I've only been here for about a year, is I know that El Paso has a history of a lot of tragic stories that happen, here in the borderland and over the borderland.
Yes.
And when you really break it down, there's this reoccurring cycle that just seems like it's never ending. And, as a guy, I can't tell you how that makes me feel, but I can watch plays and I can hear stories about how those things manifest into a message. When Nature Calls, I haven't had the privilege to watch it, but I cannot wait. But, of course, the theater isn't, shy to these kinds of stories. There's plays like Emotional Creature. There's plays like The Vagina Monologues, Raisin in the Sun. Real quick, and whoever wants to jump in and answer this one, please go ahead. What about this story? What resonated with you guys, and where did it come from?
I think it just felt really relevant. Josefina Lopez is the playwright. She wrote Real Women Have Curves, Confessions of Women from East LA, which Los Actores also produced a few years back. And it just felt like the right time to do it. We have had all this time to sort of step away from our regular lives, and you've seen all over the world how Mother Nature is starting to heal herself. And it just felt like the perfect timing to do this play. Everything was so chaotic, and this play kind of has hard stories to tell, and sometimes people don't want to hear those stories anymore. We kind of turn away from them because it's too much. But everyone is stuck in their homes with not much to do, and so you're kind of forced to listen to what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I think it was just, the timing was just perfect.
It was perfect.
Would you guys like to each go around, maybe D, if you want to kind of like talk about your character, and then we can move around and like what that meant to you performing that role?
Sure. For me, as a trans woman, the character that I played, this battery queen, I got to have like tons and tons of batteries in my apartment and my neighbor's house and my mom's house and a factory of 40 tons and all that. But for me, it meant more to that because I finally got a chance to tap into the Asian side of my personality. My parents kind of didn't want me to do that. They wanted me to kind of focus on being an American. And that's fine in the 60s. But in 2020, I got to be me. And I had to explore. And this character gave me the opportunity of a lifetime to see and feel what it was like to be an environmentalist, which I was in my earlier years. I was an ecologist kind of a freak. I still am. But I got to be that. I got to be Asian and tap into my Asian womanhood, which was really cool because I felt free in this character. As a matter of fact, the character almost overtook me at one point going into the performance, and I thought, wow, this is really powerful.
Before moving on to the other actors, which I'm excited to hear, it sounds very enveloping. I just want to kind of talk about Dee a little bit and how I always like to do a little anecdote of how we met the guests or how we've talked to them or know them. I have the luxury of meeting for the first time the rest of the actors, but with Dee was kind of, if Dee weren't around at UTEP when we were at UTEP, our first short film wouldn't have been produced, which was Sun City Lights. Dee helped us so much at UTEP using a classroom and using the studio for post work. And I mean, even to this day, I know we can reach out and say, he's always like, hey, sound mixing or Foley or stuff like that, he's always reaching out. She's always reaching out, and we thank you for that, D, because really, Sun City Lights, you even played a character. You played a teacher, a professor.
That's right.
There. And that's still on there. That's still on YouTube. But that was our very first venture in filmmaking, and D was championing us as a brand new company, as brand new filmmakers. And I can't thank you enough. So thank you for that, D, because you're a big part of that.
Yeah, thanks for the support.
You're quite welcome. Listen, when it comes to creating your own production company and becoming that company that you want to be, where you're surrounded with kindred spirits and everyone is signed on to this one thing. Mm-hmm. It's telling the audience what the character is all about without having to tear the script apart and say, here, read this. You become the characters, and that's what Los Actores is. It's what Tower Productions is. And it to me, it's really special. It's very organic. And I love being able to help you guys out. So whenever I can.
Yeah, thank you. I remember every time I'd just go to the studio. I had not a lot of things to do at KTEP because I wasn't even interning there. I was interning at Tower, and D would, facilitate that and we'd help people out. But I remember I'd just go to the studio to hang out with D because we got along and we loved a lot of the same bands and we just got along and got to talk music. And I remember every time D was running off at the end of the day, it would be like, oh, I'm going to the actors group. And I'd be like, oh, okay. I mean, I kind of just asked a couple questions here and there, but now it's great to finally meet Los Actores, the group that D was constantly promoting and letting me know about you all. So
also, Adrian, thank you for jumping on. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, but yeah, I just wanted to allude to that a little bit, and thank you so much for that, D. But I don't know if Amanda, if you want to go next on what your character.
Sure. I played Soledad. And my character was undergoing hypnosis for neck pain and ends up experiencing past lives that end up being fairly traumatic to affecting her personality in present day and causing the pain. Mm-hmm. It's the thing that she had internalized so hard that it materialized in this life as pain from her past 3 lives. And I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but really cool. I get to go through these basically 4 characters because I'm Soledad, and then she goes through 3 lives. And so I got to, I don't know, man. I had to just play pretend, like, but that was part of the beauty of the production was that, like Denise said, it put our mind away from the outside world. We got to kind of be in the comfort of our own home and still be on stage,
Sure.
And so, and being a new platform and a new experience for theater, I mean, I think there's so much opportunity now,
right?
That people are realizing that, hey, these YouTubers weren't just a flash in the pan, man. These kids know what was up. The virtual is the future, and I mean, we may have to do this for a while. The numbers are up.
If I can add something to that, I mean, I was helping out Martha, with trying to get the background set up, and us trying to practice with the cameras. And all of you guys, man, just all the practice you did, dedication, trying to really make it the best performance it could be for virtual. I mean, it might have been in the comfort of your own home, but it wasn't like an easygoing experience. It seemed like so much work every day.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, Amanda, because a lot of at least on my end, a lot of my favorite filmmakers are doing that right now, are reading live screenplays with the original cast of their films. I know recently I was a part of a Dazed and Confused one, and with the original cast, and I mean, a lot of our favorite filmmakers are alluding to that, or a lot of them are also doing it for charity, to get funds for causes that they believe in. I know Jason Reitman, one of my favorite film directors, also did one for The Princess Bride. Basically,
yes, I love that one. It was great.
Yeah. So it's a lot of people are doing it, and I think you're absolutely right, Amanda. I think at least for the time being, with our situation, and especially in El Paso, as you mentioned, the numbers have gone up, unfortunately, drastically have gone up. I think it's going to be, this format's going to live on to be a part of our society for at least.
Good evening, attention stations taking special coverage. That's just a fact.
That's D at the studio. What did I tell you? It's D at the studio.
I was going to say that I also think that these virtual plays help make these performances more accessible, because, you know, typically, like, there's usually limited seating, and typically there isn't enough room for people of all likes. So to have it on the virtual end, it's almost like, you know, we've also seen a very major production hit Disney Plus. Hamilton was shot between 3 different times. One live performances, and then one by themselves where they were able to get on the stage. You know, so you know, and even then, like, people forget that there's this big debate going on, actually. Real quick, I'll transition. I'll land it real quick. There's this big debate whether or not Hamilton deserves to win an Oscar, because it's, you know, it's
technically theater
in the stereo.
It's a new platform, right.
And that seems to be the future. Black Widow is now on Disney Plus. So, you know, how do we, you know, the office are changing things up.
Right.
And one of the things that people forget is that plays have always been a part of cinema. Plays have always, you know, if anything, films borrow so much from stage productions that we take them and we think that they're originals, but, you know, like plays like Fences and plays, you know, like, you know, all walks of life, you know, and I think that, like, at the end of the day, this medium, this transition that we're all taking, and I really love what was said, because I for one grew up a theater geek in high school, and I loved plays. I starred in all the plays that I was in high school, and it was amazing. It was a beautiful experience. I remember, you know, being a part of the plays and being able to act at the Gallows Center. So we got to act every year, like, on a big stage, and it was beautiful. And I just love the atmosphere. One thing that I think that is important to remember about theater is that it's always a safe space for people, because whether or not we like to know it or acknowledge it, we all have a life apart from the one we have when we're working. But when
and you get to play pretend. You get to play pretend, and it's like a giant trust exercise, because you're basically putting a whole other persona into another person's hands and saying, okay, now you throw me the ball. Okay, now you throw me the ball. And ahí vamos jugando. And the more you get into it, the better the game is. You know what I mean?
And it facilitates. I think right now it facilitates people. We had a guest yesterday on the cast, Carlos Corral, for the El Paso Film Festival. And we've noticed that with film festivals, it's even facilitating people, almost like there's no excuse. You can watch it from the comfort of your own home. And that facilitates getting people, quote unquote, to the seats, right? Because unfortunately, everybody's busy. They won't, unfortunately, make the time to go unless they really care about it. And those are the people we really love and care about that show that support. But now the numbers are probably spiking up in terms of viewership, right? I think because people can watch it from the comfort of their own home. So I think, to add to Juan's point, it allows for people to watch it from their couches and say, oh, how did I not enjoy this in person? Like I need a 10 more place once COVID passes, right? So I think that's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing to pay attention to. Martha, can you tell us a little bit about your character and
Sure. Yeah, I played the character of Thelma Johnson. I'm basically a hippie goddess. And I'm in my 60s. It was a very different role than anything I've ever experienced before. Thanks to the director and the assistant director, they were able to help me put my character together. I really did enjoy working with these women. We were able to put all our thoughts together and develop the characters that we are. But I think what I enjoyed the most is that my character as a goddess or a hippie goddess, I was supposed to put all the thoughts of the women together, kind of like
that glue that just brought all the stories.
Glue all the women together, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was, and then I was also able to express some of the things that I've always wanted to express to women, that many times we're the cause of our own problems. And sometimes it's the cause of other individuals, but sometimes we allow certain things to happen in our lives. We don't put a stop. We don't know how much power we have to be able to make changes in our lives. And many times we end up being the ones that suffer for the ways we do things. Another thing I wanted to also add, and Michael, you got to see a little bit of this. I'm used to being on stage and watching people's faces when I sing or I act, and I get their feedback that way. Well, this was a whole different ball game. I had to put a mirror so that I could look at myself, and that was my only audience.
One of my favorite comedians says, he said somebody asked him a question, why don't you do a drive-through show? And he says, because I like performing for faces, not for windshields and windshield wipers. You know, so I could definitely see what you mean by that. I think that's very interesting.
It was a challenge, but it was worth the whole experience, because now you learn, well, okay, I can do it on stage, but now I need to do it one-on-one. And it's just a whole different setup. It was fun.
It was. This is Dee Dee, by the way. I played Bo. But it was different. It was difficult not having, for me, the energy exchange between my actresses and between my audience. You know, you wait for the applause, and you wait for the gasp, or you wait for the laugh, and you know, we have a little camera. You know,
was that easier? I'm sorry, though. Was that easier in terms of, because this was all entirely monologue? So, do you feel like if you put on another production where you have dialogue between two or more people, would that lull, almost that lull, that electronic lull, make things difficult?
The monologue show did lend itself a lot more beautifully to this style, especially the Zoom format. But Amanda and I actually worked on a Shakespeare Company one where we did the Brady Bunch theme, and it was hard to get the actors, because we're all sitting, to act, and you know, if there was something handed over, all that had to be practiced. And I think it can be done, but as actors, we like to feel that out. You know, we don't have that.
And we should mention, I know that Lao was kind enough to tell us a little bit about you all, and we should mention that Los Actores Group has also been part of a very popular format for theater here in El Paso called Shakespeare on the Rocks. And I know I've been to quite a few of them, and it's one of my favorite things to go look at the park whenever it's around. So does that help you as an actor? I know that studying Shakespeare as an actor, it's almost like a requirement. It's almost like a must, right? To be able to.
It's the hardest and most beautiful thing ever, because at first when you start it, you genuinely are like, what am I doing to myself? This is so hard. But then once you get it, man, you just get it. And
I think it's interesting to ask actors about that, because I myself, when I did theater in high school, I fell in love with the literature side of it. And I fell in love with the writing and the directing aspect of Shakespeare, as opposed to actors who fall in love with the performance and the voodoo of it all, right? You get to play, like you said, you get to play make-believe in a completely different era and world. And I fell in love with the literature side of it. I really did. But I that's why I love interviewing actors, especially people who are involved in Shakespearean acts, because in El Paso, people think we don't have that. We do. We do. And it's a fantastic variation of Shakespearean plays. I don't know if any of you would like to talk a little bit about that.
Well, Amanda actually directed Macbeth a couple years ago for the 33rd season.
Sure.
And I had the honor and privilege of playing Lady Macbeth. And Amanda did this wonderful Shakespeare meets apocalyptic times. And Amanda, if you want to continue with that one, explain
that's what I love about Shakespeare on the Rocks. It takes a modern twist to these classic acts that we love to see.
If I can be completely honest with you guys, I can tell you guys the truth about this, right?
Sure, of course. Yes, please.
Okay. This is it's not a funny story. I might get in trouble. Anyway, okay.
We'll see how it goes. Anyway.
This is just between us, right? It's just
right. Yeah.
So it's like maybe 6 months before the season gets going. And one of the board members calls me and says, hey, man, we really haven't had anybody volunteer to direct this season. Everyone's super busy.
Which has been an ongoing problem.
Oh, no.
Smaller audiences.
Right.
So our usual directors are all going through teaching programs. Nobody's available. Somebody, would you be interested? And I said, no.
No way.
I said, no, I know what y'all put your directors through. It's Shakespeare. It's MRF and Shakespeare, man. No, I'll be lucky. I wasn't even going to audition this year, kind of. So then maybe 2 weeks later, one of the other board members calls me, and she's one of the lead actresses and a really good friend of mine. And she says, Amanda, are you sure you don't want to direct?
Are you really sure?
Please.
And I said, well, what are the shows? What are they? What are we doing? So it was that season. It was Midsummer Night's Dream.
Love it.
Macbeth, and what was the other show, Deedster? Richard III? Maybe. I don't know. It was another show, another Shakespeare show.
Yeah.
And, oh no.
Much Ado? Was it Much Ado?
It was Much Ado About Nothing.
That's a great play.
It was beautiful. So I said, okay, fine. You know what? If I get to pick, then I want to do Midsummer. No, I get a phone call from Mr. Serrano. Amanda, Midsummer is my play. I am directing Midsummer.
Wow.
But we have Macbeth available. I said, okay, you know what? Let me come up with an idea. So I'm thinking to myself, come up with something, Amanda, para que te vayan a decir que no. You know what? Come up with the craziest, silliest idea that not silly,
right,
but the
of course not.
outlandish idea that you could think of.
Right.
We're gonna go, there's no way she could pull this off. So I made Macbeth and Lady Macbeth lesbians. They were in a post-apocalyptic setting. I told that all the music was heavy metal and classic rock, and whoa. I proposed that all of my materials and set pieces would be made from recycled materials, and so I
Duncan,
and
Duncan was played by.
Yeah, huh?
Duncan was played by.
Oh, and Duncan was played by Rumor, whom is a very popular drag performer here in El Paso. Wow. And I made Duncan and that family and Beth aliens.
Wow.
We had standing ovations. We had a wonderful turnout.
Sure. I thought, you know what? I'll have to send you guys the link.
Please. Yes. That'd be fantastic. And you know what? I Shakespeare on the Rocks, as I said, it's been a staple in the Chamizal Park and Chamizal National Theater for a long time. I mean, we're talking about decades here. And I highly encourage, once the pandemic is over, once the season rolls back around, not only with the Los Actores group, obviously attend all those plays, but Shakespeare on the Rocks, we have seen numbers kind of going down a little bit in the past couple of years, but I do think that it's something highly enjoyable, and you just pick a spot on the ground and enjoy all of the great performances that are happening. So I know it's been a staple in El Paso for a long time, and I think it needs to be celebrated.
We've been using their indoor theater lately.
Oh, okay.
So we're inside.
Okay, great.
Also, back to interject back into When Nature Calls.
Sure.
Because Hector Serrano is the creative director for both of these companies.
Okay.
The success of When Nature Calls helped him open up his mind to virtual theater. And so now we're starting to also take what we learned, and the pioneering trailblazing of Joanne Lopez and Denise Castañeda, like to push that into Shakespeare on the Rocks. Sure. And now we're working on shows that actors don't even have to be in El Paso.
Wow.
Which is
that's great.
It's a whole new
be
platform.
able to collaborate with actors like that.
Exactly. And so as I was telling everyone in the Shakespeare Company, it is annoying to learn a new platform. It is a lot of work to do it this way, and you have all the tech stuff, but it's not more work than going to a theater every day, learning your blocking. I mean, we've all had those of us actors have had roles that are just exhausting, you know, and you are doing it from your own home, but you have to do your own set. And as community theater actresses, we do that all the time anyway. So it is, I don't want to say it's more work. It's just different work, and it's totally doable.
And you do because you love it. Ultimately, everybody who's adjusted. I remember even with this podcast alone, we started in a in-studio live interviewing the guests, and it changes the dynamic. Ultimately, it changes the dynamic entirely, and we love it. We found a way to make it work. You know, you just have to find a way to make it work. But but it's only doable to the people who really love what they do, and we can see that you all being a part of When Nature Calls, you love what you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be putting in the effort, and that's what's fair, right?
Oh, and
can I give a quick shout out to our technical director who was
Brooke.
Awesome, Brooke Cholka, and she was actually doing everything from Reno, Nevada.
Oh, wow.
And she did amazing. It was such tedious, annoying work to put this all together,
I bet.
And you know, she was great. Shout out to Brooke.
Yeah.
Is there a specific reason why you guys locate yourself around the Chamizal area? Because I know you guys talk a lot about you know, the environment, and you guys all seem like you're environmentalists and stuff. And you know, real quick, if anybody would be interested in the podcast who's listening, El Paso fights these battles every day, either through, you know, organizations. Of course, there's the Newman 6 fracking facility that's being built up, and you know, protests against that as well. To have like this, because I think people forget that, you know, if we are talking about like Shakespeare and all, that's how original communities were formed, was through those plays. And real quick, to talk a little bit more about the play, When Nature Calls, what themes, and I'd love to go to one by one for everybody, what themes really resonated with you from this play?
Well, for me, was it for us? Was that a question for us?
Yeah, whoever wants.
Well, what I loved about When Nature Calls, especially during COVID, was that it was real life stories. I played Mo, and Mo was different in the sense that she was a real character. She was based off of a real character. And so understanding that someone really honestly went through this tale that she tells, it was the longest monologue, and it was really intense from start to finish. It was about a woman was in the Red Cross during Katrina and Hurricane Rita. So this is real telling, and there's real death in the situation, and there's real peril. And it was about how Mother Nature, I mean, all of us were, back when this happened, we all understood that Mother Nature was pissed off at us back then.
Sure.
And so that kind of brings that theme back into the forefront. And so When Nature Calls is all about women dealing with nature and various levels within themselves. And this is kind of just echoing back the fact that we have really neglected Mother Nature, and the fact that she'll be fine. You know, that's the last monologue. She'll be fine. We're just eradicating ourselves and giving ourselves a hard time. We're killing our own air and killing our own, you know, resources.
I think as far as films go, Gastro and I love to talk about Darren Aronofsky's, or was it PTA? I think it was Darren Aronofsky's Mother, the film. And how that focuses on those themes. Yeah, a lot of people, it's gotten mixed reviews, but we get it. I mean, Gastro and I, we talk about just all the symbolism behind that performance and that particular view of, you're absolutely right. The fact of the matter is that Mother Nature is going to do whatever Mother Nature does. And the only ones that are being affected or affecting ourselves are really us by not taking care of the planet we've been given, right? So just, I wonder if that's an inspiration at all, or if that's something to kind of wonder about for that film particularly. I think focuses heavily on that theme.
Yeah. Right.
Would anybody else like to jump in on that question?
I'm gonna say that being that my character did have to go through those lives, and it's my understanding that Josefina wrote that based off of a personal experience. I could be wrong. So it resonated with me in that, at the end of the monologue, she has this giant realization about how our souls don't die, and we just kind of keep moving forward and evolve.
We come back to the world we left.
And all we can do is learn and keep going. And it's like a loop, like a giant loop, Sure. And so in having to read it and then reread it, I really genuinely felt like I was learning about maybe in my own past life, maybe I have this because of this. And you know what I mean? Like you really start to internalize, the not just the character, but the words, like the
message. Yeah.
Would you,
that's what I wanted to ask. Like, what was the direction the director wanted to take? Like, was he okay with you guys improvising, or he wanted it line for line?
It had to be memorized completely, and it just didn't work if it was posted beyond, if we projected it, because we weren't looking, and it had to be memorized.
And you couldn't improvise lines because they were so powerful the way it was written, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Precisely. And there was a chance that the playwright might actually watch. We got an endorsement from her, and she was that was like, oh my God, that was even
beautiful.
That was more stressful than learning 25 minutes worth of dialogue.
Sure.
But
I think we were allowed to make a couple of changes just to accommodate the platform.
Right.
Like instead of saying, sorry, I'm late, I couldn't find your office, I changed it to, sorry, I'm late, I couldn't figure out this Zoom thing.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. My character was on a Zoom call like this. So, I was messing with can you hear me? That was, that was the improvised line.
Yeah, if I could just bring that up real quick. It's a big technical learning curve for everybody, especially like for us. We had this podcast in person, and then we're shifting on to Zoom and everything. And I know for you guys, there were so many technical rehearsals. And the day of, I remember we were setting up for Martha, and we were seeing your part go on, and we're really excited because Mo's just such a unique character. And I remember that the audio went off, and everybody was just like, oh my goodness, like, you can't hear Mo, and everybody was panicking, and I was thinking like, are you okay? Is everything going to be fine? And you bounced into it just fine. Like,
thank you.
You did a great job.
We had an awesome hack, which was running Facebook Messenger in the background. Yeah. So you can see your the first line of the messages. And during rehearsal, it was a free-for-all. Everyone was just posting all sorts of stuff.
Right. That's true.
But for the show, we had to, thespians, we're lonely in our homes here, Yeah. So we had to really work hard not to, send silly things, and it was like the flame emoji to let us know that there was something. And I was getting, you're on mute, and you're on mute. And it wasn't me. It was my headphones weren't plugged in properly because we had done a sound check.
Oh, man.
And so it was just a matter of me. And then we were told the person after us. So, for example, Soledad was on standby as soon as I was on. So she was on standby that whole time. Oh, okay. And she was ready to go. They were, so we reconnoiter, and everyone is, we got the When Nature Calls, page, the image up there. And what are we doing? I'm like, I'm fine. Can you hear me now? Okay, we're going to put you back on. And I'm like, there it was,
Oh, thank God.
My heart was.
You have to learn. You have to learn on the spot in these formats. I want to talk a little bit about the format. As you all know, we're filmmakers, and we come from the filmmaking background. A lot of us from the theater background as well. And as Juan said earlier, as filmmakers, we love and appreciate theater because filmmaking wouldn't be filmmaking without the roots in theater. And I have to ask, we get a lot of people coming in from theater to the film industry because they want to make that transition or they want to try it out. And, apart from actors and crew members, we get individuals who aren't used to the cut, right? And I have to ask, in case anybody here, any of y'all have been part of any film productions, I have to ask, is there a challenge to switch? We're talking about switching formats.
There is.
We're talking about switching formats. So can you talk a little bit about those challenges? Because I know as a theater individual, I'm a writer director in film who loves to write dialogue. And if you see any of my films, they're 10, 15, 20 pages of dialogue. It really are. And that people who come from theater seem to obviously relate to that more and to love that side of it.
We overact is what we do.
And for the same reason, I love long takes. I love to do long takes. And especially when I'm working with theater individuals, I love working with you guys because long takes for me are what I love to do.
I've been told
have any experience?
I've been told that my theater background has made me more pleasurable to work with because I can do the long takes, because I want to remember what I'm doing, because I work with my other actors. Because we show up, they give you the script, and you just do your little piece. Amanda and I were both in Save Me, directed by Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, sure.
And I just got my script that day, and it was just, I'm just like, when do I get it? I need to memorize. Yeah, I was like, so I'm over here. I messed it up. I messed up that line. There was like, no, you were fine.
Right. No.
The great thing about Chris is that he will pull you back. He'll be like, okay, remember, you're on a screen. You're not on a stage.
Right.
Like, and then we kind of go, yeah. And the other thing is, the thing with Chris is he kind of digs the improvisation. So if you can throw something in that's like funny.
I love those type of directors.
If you can impress them with your
it works for the character.
Like he gave a lot of people that rate. Like he kind of just said, look, you need to get from here to here in this scene, and make sure you at least mention this. And
it's daunting and exciting at the same time to work in film after working in especially Shakespearean theater, because it's so stringent working in theater, and you have to,
there's rules.
There's rules. And in movies, you can take another take. It's totally,
No, and I think that's why theater actors, thespians are more well versed, and they're more prepared. I mean, quite honestly, sometimes you come more prepared because in your brain, with theater, you have one long take essentially. With theater, it's one long take. That's it. That's all you get, unless you're performing the act, multiple nights, and then you get another shot at improving whatever you did the night before, right? But with film, it's very much so. I mean, you hear about directors that do 50 takes, and
I need 50 takes,
and some people like that, and some people allude to that, but obviously in their stories when they're talking about making the film. But in this particular case, I love to hear theater actors and theater crew members too. There's theater crew members that come on to do, light a set, and it's their first time working on set for film, and they say, wow, man, this is entirely different.
Very different.
The very first time that I wound up doing Foley and sound was in 2015 for It's a Wonderful Life. Eurydice Saucedo actually asked me while we were doing an interview if I'd like to do the sound for it. Okay, so I come out of a radio and TV background.
Right.
And I'm thinking, I can go ahead and put together all your sound effects and everything, not realizing that I had to go to every freaking rehearsal and stay from 7 to 3 in the morning every freaking night. And then the performances and Tech Week. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. I think that's the beautiful thing about it is there's a bridge that we all meet on as filmmakers and as theater professionals, right? I find it very beautiful that there's this bridge that we connect on where the formats may be different, but the art and the intention with the art is the same. And staying at a theater till 3 a.m. is our version of staying on set till 3-4 a.m. And we're all but we're all passionate about it, and we want to do it, and I think that's true.
Because, in radio theater especially, you can go ahead and take as many takes as you want from every actor, and then you rely on the engineers to go ahead and follow the script and edit everything in, including the Foley, including the music, and so the actors really don't stay there nowadays. But they used to back in the 1940s, where you had a guy over in the
radio dramas. Yeah, of course.
Oh, man, I love doing radio drama.
I mean, hey, speaking of radio dramas, we can't leave those out because, Orson Welles started in theater. He acted. He traveled. Where was it? I think he traveled to like Germany or some Chile or some random part of the world, and he actually was a part of an actors group for a very long time. And
I want to say Betty White also. Am I wrong? I think
I think so.
A lot of the stars in between the silent era of film and up to the 1940s, 1950s, you really had a lot of the stars that started in radio and became part of the Hollywood studio system. So Betty White was a part of that.
Right, and Orson Welles, of course, did the infamous World of the Worlds radio drama that did the nation.
And don't forget the Marx Brothers. The first 3 films were all Broadway plays. They weren't written for film. They just put a Broadway play on film. And
and that's something that continues to going back to the theme of cycles. It continues to come back.
Well, I think our theater platform is bleeding into now the film platform and the recording platform as in this form. So we're kind of, just putting another, we're just doing another circle around that cycle there.
Yeah. And at the same time innovating in your craft and finding new and innovative ways to bring the art to the people, right? So I really want to ask, as far as, pre-COVID, when you all were very active in doing a lot of theater performances and productions, this was for the most part. It sounds like Los Actores group and the people you all work with are very much in-house, and you have a shorthand and you know each other. Can you tell me a little bit about that relationship with all of you and how that works? How many plays maybe?
And how I could get in?
Yeah.
Well, I was on the council for both, and it's a lot of work for a small group of people. I remember at one meeting we had like 8 people. That was the company meeting.
Oh, okay.
Because we're still all working class. Sure. And I do have to note this, that when we're talking about theater, to be a reoccurring actor in a theater company, it's a lot of work. And you have to do this on the off hours of work, home, all of this stuff.
Sure.
And film, it happens as well, but you can get a little bit more break, so you how many films do you produce rather than how many plays are put on by a company in a year?
Sure.
So,
sorry.
No, go ahead, Meta.
Say, and where Hector, as the artistic director of Los Actores, is concerned, we're very blessed in that he has a good relationship with Luis Valdez, and we're able to use that material. And so whenever he wants to put on a show, he already knows that he has an actor that plays La Muerte. He already knows that he has Madre and Padre and Johnny, and and so he's able to put those shows on a whim because he's already got his actors ready to go.
And give him the old number 23. That's kind of how it turns out.
And that's the thing is, right before When Nature Calls, we attempted a live performance at the El Paso Playhouse for one weekend.
Oh, okay.
And they had to have very, very, very strict rules because to stay on the safe side, the president there, currently an administrator, she went ahead and had the task force go in and make sure that they were doing everything up to code.
Wow.
And so they were allowed to continue operating at a 30-person capacity.
Of course.
So that shot their prices up.
Right.
Me as the tech person, I was alone up in the booth. I couldn't have an assistant, so I was running from the spotlight to the soundboard, to the spotlight, to the soundboard.
Right.
And then I was backstage, which they had I want to say 8 or 10 actors. Each had to have an individual space backstage, and they couldn't socialize. However, they were allowed to not have masks on stage, but they were still having to stand 6 feet apart from each other. So it was I
think that's a great thing to bring up, Amanda. Is that, how do you all feel about that format? Return at some point or another, as everybody says, we're all trying to stay safe, us filmmakers
Right.
included. There's tons of protocols with the unions that we're following upon wanting to get back to set. And on the theater front, how comfortable or uncomfortable do y'all feel as performers of going back to the live stage? And, how do y'all feel about that?
Well, can I say something? Because I'm one of the older ones of this group.
Sure. No,
And both my husband and I felt very uncomfortable going on stage, even if we were a distance from each other.
Okay.
Because
is your husband an actor as well?
He's an actor as well.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
That's why, and the thing is that you're just hearing so many stories out there that so many people are coming down with a COVID-19, and so it scares us to be in any production on stage.
Of course.
So I assume that the younger individuals maybe feel that they'll pull out of it if anything happens to them. But for us, we felt like it was a scary.
It's important to bring up. I mean, even if you're not older and you have underlying conditions, and the truth of the matter is, we don't know enough about this thing that even if you don't have any underlying conditions and you're 20 and 30, and it's affecting everybody. But I completely agree with you, Martha. I think that that's a good thing to bring up, that if you don't feel safe, then that's okay. That's also okay for the time being until we can get back into it. But
I couldn't live with myself if I was the one. I mean, I'm pretty healthy and I probably won't show any signs, but my mother isn't. And, my infant nieces and nephews aren't. And I just couldn't. I knew they would want to come see me and they would want to say, it sounds so romantic to say, I would brave COVID to go see you.
Yeah.
But it's just, I could not live with myself if anything happened. And it has been a huge challenge with especially some of the older thespians to change to this platform and to accept that. And they're like, why can't we just go and do it? And it's a just like everybody who wants to go to the bars but you have nowhere to put it.
I think the beauty of it is, at least with us, with our team, what we're trying to make everybody understand is that you can still, number one, you can still be creative indoors. Okay, that's not going away. Your creativity doesn't go away just because you have to stay indoors, number one. Number two, as hard as it is to admit this and as hard as it is, the camera will be there when COVID is over. The stage will be there when COVID is over. At the end of the day, your safety comes first. If you're not healthy, you can't perform. That's the bottom line.
There you go.
So I think it's important to see both sides, and we respect those who want to brave it, as you say, and go out there and do their craft, and especially those who that's their living. That's how they make their money. We understand those filmmakers and artists who have to go and make their money and make their living. But if you don't, well, make sure to be careful and just, if you are going to go out, follow the protocols. If you're not, the stage and the camera will still be there at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So make sure to be creative and find ways to be creative. I mean, if you're a playwright, write plays. If you're a screenwriter, write screenplays.
Shakespeare wrote King Lear during a plague.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. So just a fun
The more you know.
right off the bat.
A lot of great during pandemics.
If you don't mind bringing me back to When Nature Calls, Denise, what was it like being, I mean, it seems hard enough being an assistant director and an actress, like on a stage and all that, but the production, the behind the scenes, putting this together and collaborating to try to get all this, shifted onto Zoom, updating everybody. How was that experience for you? I mean, it's one thing to act, it's another thing to put together this whole production.
Definitely.
Yeah. It was a little stressful at times. I felt like I was going a little crazy because I actually hadn't been on the stage for about 5 years. So to come back and direct and act was a little daunting, but it was so much fun. It had been a long time since I felt that I had a project that I cared about and that I was good at.
Did you fall in love with the directing side of things, or was it, because it seems like you've been performing or you have performed in the past, or are they equally just parts of your life, or?
I love both, but I did not enjoy doing them at the same time.
Okay.
And around Tech Week, I was kind of told Joanne and Brooke, just let me be an actress. I kind of got like my diva moment. I'm like, I need to be alone and focus on my character.
I hear you.
But it was
It was one.
I felt like it made me a better actress to work with each of these super talented women and kind of break down their character with them.
Of course.
Because we were discovering these characters together, and so at times it felt like I didn't have a lot of time to focus on my character, but it was so rewarding when you give an actor a note and then they do it and you're just like, wow, like we did that, like we made this artistic baby.
Yeah, no, yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've told my producer, who's Austin Young, making sure we're sounding good here, how many times I was an executive producer for over 20 films, or 20 short films that we did, and within that time I didn't have a ton of time to just be a director, and I missed it. I just wanted to direct. I don't want to produce. I don't want to be dealing with the craziness. I just want to direct, and I just want to write. And
you still have to complain because you won't take the advice. You want to do every hat.
Right.
I gotta tell you.
It's true. My team has to come and say, hey man, go do your thing. We'll take care of that part of it. And I can definitely relate, Denise, because sometimes you just have to, you enjoy that part of the art for your own reasons. And that's what made you fall in love with that element of the art, right? So why not return to that, to go back to that every once in a while? And in my case, I've already told my producer, Austin knows, like, you're taking care of producing from now on, man. I'm going to direct, I'm going to write, I'm going to fall back in love with that because that's what I love to do. It's important for if you're an actress or an actor who came to a production and now you're doing behind the scenes stuff, it's important to realize that you fell in love with theater or film for a reason and revisit that. I think it's entirely crucial. So I'm glad you were able to just, at least for Tech Week, right? Focus on being an actress and definitely for the performance it showed. So I think that's very
talented. Yeah, fantastic.
I wanted to add to that. I had a really hard time with my character, Thelma Johnson. I myself don't look at myself as being any kind of goddess and not an individual that can guide women and help women with their different situations. But thank God that Denise gave me the time of day to help me break down my character and really think her out, because I kept on going in different directions.
How did that work? Because even though we are connected more so than we've ever had before, you know that the audience plays a huge theatrical experience once those curtains open, whatever lines you say, if there's a gasp in the audience, they become a part of it. If there's a laughter, then it adds to the funniness of the line. Real quick, I would love to get an answer from everybody. What was a moment where you felt like the direction added to your performance? What's something that you really remembered from the directing side? Something that one of the directors may have told you that really resonated with you and helped you elevate your performance?
Or like help you figure out the character?
I can answer that real quick. Not real quick, but I have my answer ready to go, is what I mean.
I'm telling you, theater actors are always ready. They always come through it.
They are. Between Denise and Joanne, they honestly molded my character, because I started off in one direction and then they went, well, maybe try this instead, Amanda, and they're both so tactful, but yet so honest with their notes. And, they weren't out to hurt anybody's feelings. And, sometimes there are some people that you work with that you go, hey, that was mean. Why did they say it like that? Or, you know what I mean?
As a director, the most important thing for me is trust. And if you have that trust in your director, and in this case, your AD,
so there was never that hurtful moment for me. I always knew that they were looking to make me the best version of Soledad that they could possibly try to mold me into, And so I tried to be putty in their hands. I might have given them a little bit of gum here and there, going, wait, are you sure? I want to do this. And
iron sharpens iron. Iron sharpens iron, right? So at the end of the day, diamonds are created with pressure, right? So at the end of the day, it needs to happen that way. There has to be a little bit of bumping, but ultimately the performances were fantastic.
Right. And then that's the thing, is that we have to trust, because they'd kind of sit there and say, remember, you're not watching you. We're watching you.
That's true. So true.
And this is too big. And we want to make her more real, Amanda.
Yeah.
Try to you're too cartoony right now, and that's my problem. As a human being, I'm a cartoon.
Animated,
Like that
definitely an animated individual, Amanda. But
So
that's
they
a good
always-
thing.
so
But that's
they
a good
had
thing.
to pull me back, you know. They
Yeah,
had to pull me
that's
back.
But
Yeah,
and
because
for me-
acting. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that for me, I'm used to working with very small children. So when I say stories, I kind of sing my
Right.
It's the Mr. Rogers tone, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Joanne and Denise helped me channel my voice in the right direction. So thank God for that.
Ultimately, as much as performers, we love to do things over the top, and we love to do things performing because that's
Right.
right. But sometimes the best acting is subtle acting, and I think that's entirely.
I think that was the sort of overall direction that we wanted. That like Amanda is an amazing character actress, and what we wanted with all of these characters was not for them to be caricatures or anything, but to be real people, and that's really difficult, especially for stage actors. We're used to being like these huge personalities,
not caricatures, but commentaries.
Right.
And then I had just come off of playing Clary from Steel Magnolias, that Zoom performance, and she's so big, and she's the mayor's wife and everything, you know. So I already had this cartoony persona inside me, so they had to really yank her out and be like, Amanda, this is a real human being that you're portraying.
Now, Dee and Dee, can you all comment on that?
I did give a hard time to poor Denise. I was a brat, and it was something that I had never really done before, and to where I had to, like, after shaming myself, I had to apologize formally, because every time I've done a Josefina Lopez show, I have pulled something out of myself. And these monologues hit so profoundly to us, and I think to each of us.
Deep. Right.
And I went in, I had auditioned for Mo, specifically for Mo. And I don't know what it was that got me, but I'm on a shaman path. And so I've gotten into this habit of choosing the hardest thing. And Mo was what scared me the most. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of this long monologue where she's talking about running away from this, this hurricane, she's going into her own traumas that were similar to mine.
Sure.
And then she sings, which is another trauma that I've had, where I was told by someone when I was very young that I could not sing, someone that I looked up to. And I had to sing in the middle of it. And so I'm getting this direction from Denise and from Joe. And I'm just like, I don't trust what you're doing with my character. I was like Golem. I was like, my precious, you're not going to touch this. We're going to do this.
You get that.
It was so hard. And I had never worked with Denise either. And the fact that I couldn't feel her and be with her in the same room, and we couldn't grow with each other through all the different rehearsals. We had this. We had this.
Of course.
And and we had to express what we wanted. That was also a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And once we were able to both agree, she was like, look, I want the best thing for you too. And all right. I was able to let go. And it was actually Denise's direct advice that was able to get me to sing with a lot less fear. While my neighbors were driving up, I was on my porch, if you recall, my neighbors were driving up onto their driveway as I was, doing that part. So
were they just thinking
really
it's like the most passionate Zoom call you've ever had in your whole life? Like, you're just out there.
Well, because we had been rehearsing it, I'm sure my immediate neighbors knew. But yeah, it was. Oh gosh, the heart was racing the time.
Yeah.
How about you, Dee? How did your character kind of how did that direction affect you?
Well, first off, Joanne and Denise trusted me with this role. I didn't try out for it. Joanne actually phoned me on a Sunday afternoon between beers, and she said, listen, I have this problem, but I also have this offer. And so she told me about this role of the Battery Queen. And all she had to do was just say, well, can you play the Battery Queen? I said, sure.
Just like it.
I don't know what the Battery Queen is from Adam. I have no clue.
Right.
But it's like, okay, so let me explain it to you. And then you tell me afterwards if you still want to do it. So she explained how this woman is from mainland China in the middle of this thing, who's collected all of these batteries and is pretty much a hoarder, but a hoarder with a reason.
Right.
And I thought, well, it sounds like my office. So I
do remember.
I can vouch for that. The cameras are all over the place in Dee's office.
Yeah.
Therapeutic.
So the more I thought about it, the more I said, yeah, okay, you know what? If you trust me enough to ask me, I want to return the trust and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Denise and Joanne worked with me and drew every ounce of the real me out of that into that character. The character that you see on that performance isn't a caricature. What you're seeing there is actually the persona that's been hiding in me for about 60 years. And just, she comes out and that's it. And if it wasn't for Denise, if it wasn't for Joanne, if it wasn't for all of you ladies who really just supported this freakazoid who hasn't been in theater but for 5 years, and it's like, you trusted me. How could I let you guys down?
No. That's beautiful, dude. That's a beautiful.
Great job.
Dee, can you also kind of talk about the challenge of getting all the batteries needed to play Battery Queen?
Yeah, how did you go about that?
All the props.
So I'm not sure who it was who donated.
It was Martha and
we did.
So do you want the batteries back? Because they're still in the production.
It's okay.
We need to dispose of them safely.
Yes.
Yes.
You forget this is UTEP. They don't do anything safely around here. Except masks to wear. That's it.
I think on Dee's beautiful note on something that I know has been a challenge for Dee for the past, I mean, like you said, 40 plus years. I think on that beautiful note of freedom and empowerment and women empowerment, I think that's what we're trying to encapsulate here with talking about When Nature Calls. So I think everybody has done a beautiful job of alluding to that in one way or another. What can we expect from Los Actores Group moving forward? And I know we're all on, if you weren't part of it, you missed it. However, I do know you all plan on releasing the video recording at some point. Can you all tell us a little bit about that? And what can we expect from Los Actores Group?
Where can we watch it once it releases?
Well, I believe we are planning to post it on YouTube. Because of copyright laws, we can't just make it public. So it'll be invitation only. So like a select few, and you all are invited.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
I'll send it over.
We'd love to. Yeah.
There is a challenge with recording these Zoom shows or these virtual shows, because then they no longer become live theater.
Right.
Where it's exciting to watch it live, as we were watching some of those table readings that were done live, one take, and that's why it's so special. It also puts us out of work. It's just one show,
It's allowed. It's entirely allowed, and it's a different format. It's not a film, and it's not what people.
Yeah. So the company is having. I know we had talks about, is it real theater if it's recorded, and what are we willing to do? So we are looking. I know that the Shakespeare on the Rocks company is looking to put on the virtual sonnets that has not even been announced yet. Yeah. And working with Hector, who is just so passionate about theater and how he loves his theater, we have to kind of practice with this medium before we get him to, put on more shows. So hopefully, we will see more virtual theater. Well, as far as Los Actores is concerned, they did do these last two shows back to back, the Luis Valdez tribute weekend. A couple weekends later was When Nature Calls. Sure. So they might be capped out for the rest of the year, but it won't surprise me if we decide to do something like this very soon.
Sure.
There is another division also with Los Actores with doing Chicano theater versus traditional Spanish theater or Spanish speaking theater.
Sure.
So there were a handful of both types of plays thrown out there.
Right.
So again, if we can find the passionate actors and the dedicated directing staff,
sure,
we probably can put one on again in the spring, and it's just learning right now. So
Beautiful.
it's very touch and go right now.
You heard it. You heard it here on Tower, guys. Everybody, if you don't see it live, you may not see it again.
Exactly.
At least with the whole, Zoom format of things. So make sure to please be on the lookout for their on their Facebook pages, on their social media pages, everywhere. Where they're promoting it, you have to see it live. It's a must.
A must.
I want to reiterate. We should reiterate what these people do as well, because, let's not forget that they're putting a show for a community around Chasmizal. We all know about that barrio, and of course, you guys having that connection with Luis Valdez. We're not just talking about director. Like, we're talking about besides La Bamba, like. This is the person who brought Zoot Suits to the American cinema mainstream. And the fact that you guys continue to root yourselves in these stories is very beautiful.
Well, I think we had D who wanted to comment on
of course, yeah, they can answer. But yeah, I just want to let that out there and go ahead, D.
There was something that I think sometimes we all miss it. Yeah, I understand the whole thing. When you do live theater, it's a one-shot thing. It's like a comet, boom, it's gone. And then whatever you captured on video doesn't feel like live theater. But then again, if you look back into history, into the TV theater, like CBS Mystery Theater and NBC Playhouse and all these other things that ran for years, those were plays that were done as live theater and then captured on celluloid to replay at a different time.
There's positives and negatives to it. I'm writing. I just finished writing a musical, a screenplay, and my composer and I were going back and forth on the set list. We're both Hamilton nuts. We're big Hamilton nuts. I mean, we love Hamilton. I mean, can quote every word of the play entirely, every single rap lyric. And we talked about how he went to see Hamilton live 3 times. He saw him twice in New York on Broadway and another time on a traveling company. And I was so jealous. I was like, I was never able to see it live. I only got to see it on the Disney Plus front. I was obsessed with the soundtrack before that, but he says, no, don't be so jealous. I never saw it with the original cast. I only saw the original cast on the Disney Plus format. So there's definitely plus and minuses of seeing it.
So true.
So there has to be a balance of that. But for theater, there's nothing like seeing a performance live and nothing like seeing the work live. That's what it's designed to do, is to get a reaction out of you immediately.
Also, I mean, like in history, like everybody thought that when a new medium came in, like, we had the newspaper coming in or radio coming in or TV, that it was going to kill what was before it. But then, I mean, I think it was at that point we started realizing why we appreciate theater and what that does to us compared to what movies do to us. And that's why like us as a film company, we enjoy the art of the motion picture and we appreciate other mediums, and that's why we look to you guys for like inspiration and look to look to us for inspiration.
I think the common ground that we have, again, you heard it here on TowerCast, there's no beef between theater and film people. We love each other. We as filmmakers appreciate and respect the craft of theater so much, especially if you're a theater geek like me who loves it. But I know theater people respect and jump on the filmmaking front, and we have that mutual respect for each other. I think it's very important to note that there's the common ground of anybody who's putting on a play or showcasing a film is that you go to the lobby and you get to hear, what did you think? And those moments are the most important moments for performers and for creatives alike. Yeah.
So watching the playback, because we did have a little playback up for a few moments before it was taken down, but I was enjoying all of the emojis that were coming on, all of the comments coming through that I didn't get to, I wouldn't have seen as an actress.
And you can't pay attention to that. You can't pay attention as you're performing
when you're acting,
to the
exactly. And it's kind of like the closest thing I got, during a live performance, because when you're on stage, you feel that in live time. So that was my little treat to see that. That was really cool to see all of the comments come through, that they were actually paying attention. I actually watch a lot of live streaming. Actually, right now, Julio Ortiz is a local musician. He's got a live stream that he's done every single Thursday on Facebook Live. And he takes donations. And everyone just emoji cons, replies, and it's just he's got his tip jar up there, which also helped us out a lot. I think we raised more money in this format than we did with the traditional theater in-house.
Go figure. I'm telling you.
I also watch DJ Lord of Public Enemy every Friday. He has a DJ set. And it's awesome. It's the same people going on and talking amongst ourselves, and we're all over Australia. There's people in Africa. We're all watching this show go on. It's really cool. And it is merging live theater and film, because it can be recorded. It can be. So there's so much more that we can do, and I'd lost my train of thought, but there
there's the ability to bridge that gap, especially in the community here in El Paso. We as filmmakers are constantly the groups we've had a pleasure of working with. I'm glad we were introduced to you all, because we have films upon films upon films that we're developing, and we're always looking for new faces. We're always looking for new actors and new creatives. Trust me when I say we've had the pleasure of working with the UTEP Theater Group various times, and reaching out to theater to actors there. But we're constantly looking to bridge that gap, and to us as creatives help out on the theater and be involved in theater because we love it, and vice versa. Get theater individuals, not just actors, but anybody who wants to jump on a set. Let's get that bridge going. I think it's important for the community, especially here in El Paso. We know each other that well,
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think it could be a beautiful collaboration there for sure.
Sorry, I had to do this, guys, but it's coming to the end of the show. The good news is we like to
thank you for having us.
Well, thank you.
Well, we got another segment for you before you leave.
We got the closing segment.
One thing before we get off, please.
Yes, Martha.
Today is Michael's birthday.
It is. I was going to mention that at the end of the show, but our very own Michael De La is
the word of the day today.
He's going to be
celebrating you. Oh, you didn't have to do that. Now I feel all warm and fuzzy. What am I going to do with these feelings? I don't know.
Is that a lighting pun?
Maybe. So, to close off this wonderful show, thank you first off for all of you coming on and taking the time. I mean, D at work and everybody else struggling between work and home, and I mean, making the time to come on. It was just wonderful having you. So we like to close off the show with a word of the day segment where we expand everybody's vocabularies as communicators, as collaborators, artists. So basically, I'm going to throw out a word, and if anybody knows what it is, they can answer it, and they can tell me what the definition is. So the word of the day for today's show is compendium. Does anybody know what compendium is?
Compendium is a understanding and a breakdown of something. It is, I think that's what it is, right? It's how it's translated, or a translation of.
Collection of related items. That's a compendium.
It's a variety of, it describes it as written works coming together in a concise summary of just a bunch of individual works.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to
learn something new.
And I'm over here like, it's the copper found on Endor. Compendium.
Nice. Take that too.
I wanted to use compendium because I mean, when Nature Calls was just this beautiful collection that, everybody's story was so unique, and it helped for a bunch of people just to come and attach themselves to a certain character. But the summary behind it, the idea of respecting Mother Earth and respecting yourself as a woman and who you identify as, I think is just beautiful the way it all came across together. So just this compendium of different works, these monologues were just amazing. And I just wanted to highlight this, and thank you for being on the show.
We thank you guys for being on this episode of TowerCast.
It's so wonderful to see you guys and my chingonas, so my wonderful women. I love you all.
To see you. Liz, I'm gonna send you guys my version of Macbeth, and then there's gonna be a pop quiz, eh?
That about does it for this conversation with Los Actores from El Paso. As you can see, they live up to their name. They are the Los Actores, and they work with really great likes. They're rooted in Chicano history, and they're continuing to tell stories that, we require in this day of age. Because at a time where perhaps we're talking a lot to a webcam, we shouldn't lose ourselves. Whether that be through a thrust, a pantomimium, or an arena, or a Zoom-like play. You should always tell your stories no matter what. That about does it for these towering filmmakers. As always, keep writing your scripts, keep pushing through your writer's block, and if you haven't heard this from anybody else except your mom, then you'll hear it from us, the filmmakers and the thespians. We love you very much. We want to see you keep going, and that about does it for us, you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Take care, everybody.
Love you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.